Hello, my name is Jacob, and this is how to play my game Fries. Fries is a climbing shedding card game where three or four players aim to be the first one out of cards or the last one in order to protect their precious fries. Clever use of wild cards and seizing the chance to create the bomb will determine who survives to the end of the game with any fries left. To play Fries with three players, you will need a deck with cards ranked 1 through 13 in four suits. With four players, you will need a fifth suit, but this teach is pretty much going to stick to three players for examples. All players also need to have three fries. Set out the reminder cards as follows. The rank reminder card should go on the 13 strong side. The must beat reminder card should be on the stronger side, not the stronger or equal side. And then set the bomb reminder and meld reminder card for your current player count out. This is the three-player card. It doesn't matter which side you have it on. And this is the four-player card. To set up each round of Fries, you will shuffle all the cards in the deck and deal 17 cards to each player in a three-player game, or 16 in a four-player game. There will always be one undealt card. These cards can be totally rearranged and should be kept hidden from opponents. I have these turned up for our benefit. Each player will then flip one card in their hand to become their wild card. Like so. This card is worth any value in suit from 1 to 13 and cannot be changed later in the round. The player who most recently ate a fry is the start player for the round. The start player for each round after will be the player after the previous starter in turn order. So if red is our starter in this round, then in round 2, blue will be the starter. The game is played over multiple rounds, each consisting of multiple tricks. When a player's hand is empty or has only their wild card in it, they have shed out. Each round begins with the starter playing a meld from their hand. Valid melds and fries include single cards, pairs, triplets, four of a kinds, or five of a kinds if you're playing with four players, and suited runs of 2, 3, or 4, or 5 if you're playing with four players. The most recent cards played are called the current meld, and in fries, players must beat the current meld if they are able. To beat the current meld, the cards played must be the same type and number, but of a stronger rank. For example, if the black duck plays this pair of fours, the red duck is required to play their pair of sevens, eights, 11s, or 12s, even if they would choose not to. You are never forced to use your wild card if you don't want to, and you are never forced to play a bomb. If you cannot play a meld and you choose not to bomb or use your wild, then you must pass. Once all players have passed in turn, the player who played the current meld takes all the cards played into that trick and becomes the starter in the next trick. Set the cards aside in a personal collection pile. The starter will then play any valid meld from their hand to become the new current meld. Once one player has shed out of the round, a meld can be beaten with the same or stronger meld. So when a player sheds out, flip this over to remind players stronger or equal melds beat. So if blue has shed out, and these are all of their captures already, then when black plays this pair of fours, red can beat this pair of fours by playing their own pair of fours. So let's say that they lead. When starting a new trick, if at least one player has shed out, the start player must play a meld from their hand that includes their weakest card. So in this instance, the red duck could play either a pair of sevens or any individual seven, or they could play this suited run of 7-8 or the suited run of 7-8-9. Either way, the lead meld they play has to include their weakest card. All rounds of fries start with 13 being the strongest rank and 1 being their weakest rank. However, when any player plays their wild card, their ranking is flipped, and 1 becomes the strongest, while 13 becomes the weakest. When playing a wild card, players will declare what it is that they're actually playing, and the played meld has to beat the current meld, after which the strengths of the ranks will switch. So, for example, if Black Duck leads with this pair of 10s, and red duck doesn't have a stronger pair but has a 12 and they're wild, they can play it as a pair of 12s. The moment that they do this, the rankings flip. And now blue duck is obliged to play a pair of 1s or any other stronger pair, which in this case, if 1 is strong, anything smaller than 12. Note that this happens as the pair resolves, not before. So in the same example, red duck cannot play a pair of 7s because this is changing it to play it. That is not how it works. The declared wild card has to be something that would allow the other cards to beat the meld, after which the rankings flip. At the heart of fries are bombs. In each round, the first time a player cannot beat the current meld, they have the option to create a bomb. A bomb is any of the valid melds that contains more cards than the current meld. So, for example, if black plays this pair of 13s, red doesn't have a way to beat it even if they use their wild card. So, because a bomb hasn't been created yet, they can play any meld with 3 or 4 cards in it to create the bomb for the remainder of the round. After doing so, they will put some kind of marker, like one of the extra fries, on the reminders to remind everybody what the bomb is. So in this case, they played a run of 3. For another example, if the black duck plays a single 13, the red duck can then choose to play a pair of 7s, which will turn pairs into the bomb for the round. Wildcards are also allowed to be used in the creation and the playing of bombs. Bombs defeat any meld that isn't a bomb, even if it contains more cards. So, for example, if pairs are still the bombs for this round, and the current meld is a 5, 6, 7, 8, if the blue duck does not have a 4-card run that beats that, they can play a pair of 1s because that's the current bomb. But note that if a player has a meld in hand that could beat the current meld, they cannot play a bomb. And as a final reminder, players are never forced to use their wild cards or play a bomb in order to meet the must-play requirements. This also applies if a player chooses to start the trick with a bomb. So, for instance, if the blue duck is starting and they lead with the pair, and pairs are the bombs right now, then black duck and red duck both have the option to pass, even if they both have pairs in their hands. Once all but one player has shed out of cards, the round is over. To determine scoring, check the following in order. If the first player to shed out won every trick they played into, including the trick they shed out in, the round ends immediately and all other players lose 2 fries. So, for example, if blue duck places 13 and both of these players have to pass, then they win. No one has won anything else. They have won. The round ends early. These 2 players lose 2 fries. If the blue duck here sheds out, though, and one of the other players happens to beat that meld before it results and they win it, that doesn't apply. If the last player in this case the red duck, has won 0 tricks, they don't have any collected cards, then the other 2 players lose 2 fries. However, if none of the above apply, then the second player who sheds out loses 1 fry. This also applies in a 4-player game. The second and third players both lose 1 fry. So when a player loses a fry, let's say black duck was the second to shed out, they just take it and it just gets set aside. The game ends when one player is totally out of fries. Whoever has more is the winner. If tied, then the player who lost a fry least recently is the winner. And if still tied, whoever buys the other tied player some fries first wins. After each round, simply follow the same steps for setup for the next round until somebody runs out of fries. And that's how to play fries.